thinking to themselves, mate, who are those guys? Johnny McGrath, welcome back for our first podcast of 2022, and we've got a dear friend of ours, and I would, John, I've got to tell you, I'm looking around. I've been 35 years in this business. A lot of it was spent in media, and I'm thinking to myself, who are the people that I interacted even 35 years ago? Like, obviously, John, I've been interacting with you for those decades, but there's not a hell of a lot of people that were back then, doing stuff and are still here now. There's not that many people, but Seth is.
Oh, I'm not that old, mate. It's 26 years. Come on.
Okay, sorry, Seth. Sorry. The way it works on the podcast, we sort of all pat each other on the back.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. I'll take a pat on the back. I'm not going to get 10 years of age, though.
We get so many, comments and people interested in the whole marketing side. And as we all know, your specialty, I won't say specialty because you do great traditional print work as well, but digital is fast becoming one of your specialties. So I think today we were hoping we can drill into some of your insights, observations, views about what's happening, because, digital, social, all of these things are becoming so important for all of our listeners and Tom's gym members. So I think, if we can have a bit of a conversation focused on that today, that'd be great value.
Fantastic, John. No, it's interesting. I was having a chat with Tom, and Tom always asked me great questions, but he was asking me, what's happening in 2022 that's different, and talking about those trends, John. And we get this great view in our business because we see all the listing data, how much people are spending and what they're doing. And 2022, we were thinking maybe it'd be a slowdown, maybe that some of the energy came out of the market, but we've instead seen an acceleration in almost every metric. So people are spending more money than they did last year, which, John, I thought I was not expecting, because, back in the old days, people had print and they had other components that dropped during COVID, but it has not only filled up, but people are spending more money on VPA than ever. And it's all going into.
So you're saying the average vendor paid marketing program has gone up in 22, not down?
So between 2021, January to January of this year, in the last 12 months, it's gone up 20%. In an environment where people are spending less money on print. And so then you ask the question, wait a sec, if they're spending an extra $1,000, $2,000 a campaign, where's it going? And that sort of answers how you set up the question. So we're seeing enormous expansion into social. We're seeing enormous expansion into digital. We're seeing, REA and domain increasing prices. Some of it's going there. Let's be honest there. But by the same token, we're also seeing a lot more ambition in the schedule in terms of what people are doing. And the other clever thing, John, we're seeing, which fascinates me, is a lot of agents are really looking at these sort of subscription services, software as a service business, whether that be for pitching, whether it be for sign on glass, whatever, John, and they're actually charging it back to the vendor. So they're figuring out ways to not only market their business and grow their business digitally, but how to make sure that they're not absorbing costs, third-party costs into their business to maintain profitability, which I don't know if I have an opinion on that, but it's really interesting.
Yeah. Tommy, over. I know you had a couple of questions.
Yeah, I want to. So firstly, first 6 weeks of January, trends that you're seeing, Mark, you're saying that it's more upbeat than you thought. I want to touch on what you've seen the first 6 weeks. And I want you to, I've been fascinated when print went. I'm still perplexed because print used to be $5-7 grand, and then when I thought when Murdoch was always known for that famous line, John, you've used it, never waste a crisis. And in June 2020, during COVID, he closed 100 papers. So, and then we started seeing print not have its presence. And I thought to myself, okay, all this money is going to leave the market. You're saying that money hasn't disappeared. It's been redistributed. And you're saying it's been redistributed to digital, to social media. You're saying things like Realtor and other products are getting money, VPA going into those products that are enablers for agents.
Absolutely. And people are almost redefining, Tom, what VPA is. So VPA is no longer just a newspaper ad and a signboard. they're saying, well, no, it's a workflow. It's the sign on glass. It's the experience that we're going to give the vendor. It's my pitching product. That's interesting. But let me put some numbers around it. So COVID hits March 2020. The average VPA in Australia is a smidgen under $5,000. So the average campaign, and I'm not talking Double Bay, I'm not talking Toorak, I'm not talking New Farm, but the average campaign across the country is $5,000. Within 8 weeks, it's dropped down to sub 3. So it doesn't matter where you're listing, it's just dropped down precipitously. And we're sitting back and going, geez, everybody's gone digital. Newspapers have effectively stopped because you can't touch them because we think that they're going to do COVID. And as a marketer, I'm looking back and saying, geez, $5,000 to $3,000. Everybody's been talking about newspapers dying. This doesn't feel good for the print business, but it certainly seems to be a shift. And if you would ask me, Tom, in July of 2020, what's going to happen, I would have said, well, listen, it's from 5 to 3. It might creep up to 4. But to your point, some of that money has just disappeared. So instead, what we've seen, Tom, is this month, the average spend was $5,100. So the average campaign in January 2022 is higher than it was in March 2020. And it's higher with no newspapers. It's higher with no $5,000 campaigns. It's higher with no 4 full pages for a full week. It is fundamentally all of that money that was going into print has been redistributed into digital.
So what's the new norm for marketing with print gone? What does that campaign look like?
So let me clarify, right? Because we need to be careful regionally. Because if you look at Queensland is an example in a market that still kicks ass for print. That Courier Mail is like still dominant. It's like a flashback to 2005 in Sydney. It's still kicking ass. And there are still markets, like you look at the eastern suburbs of Sydney, the Wentworth Courier still has a presence. So let's be careful about saying print is dead. But so there are sub-markets where it matters. But your question, Tom, was where's the money gone?
Yeah, because it's gone up.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think video is a big one. I think that social media marketing, when I look at the top agencies in the country, they are using, whether it's $200, $300, $400, $500, $600 packages on every listing. It's becoming part of their operating system. We're seeing, as I mentioned before, a whole bunch of stuff that people wouldn't have even thought of as being VPA. Stuff like $40 subscriptions, the cost for the sign-on glass, all that stuff is now being bundled in there. We're seeing some price rises from from realestate.com and Domain being added in. That's added probably $400 or $500 just there. And then we're seeing lots of interesting stuff. A lot of our bigger clients are saying, well, we're going to put a $500 fee for our own proprietary email and social marketing and media system. So some of the big players in the marketplace are developing their own custom products and creating huge revenue streams for their business, and a lot of value for their vendors, don't get me wrong. But we've seen the entrepreneurialism among some of the franchises and boutiques to actually fill the gap that newspapers have left with their own products. It's fascinating to me, absolutely fascinating, because some of these guys are creating $2, $3, $4 million revenue lines, selling social media as a real estate business. It's brilliant.
Johnny, I want to ask. John, can I just quickly ask you? I mean, McGrath's to me were, and that's the connection with the real strong connection I had with John was the number one media spending business in Australia. And when you work in a media company, that's that your bonuses, your whole life is dependent on that, right? And that was print was very big with John. Print was very big. John, can I ask you, in your own network, what's the position of video and social and other digital products? Where are you with it?
I think Seth has nailed it. There's no doubt, and you've said it, North Shore, eastern suburbs, Brisbane, prestige suburbs in Melbourne. There's no doubt there are still some micro markets where print is relevant and effective. So for sure. But if you squinted and looked at the entire market, you would almost say print has disappeared. Most of our markets, Tom, we're on both of the large portals, and I would think, Seth, that's not uncommon, REA and Domain. You're kind of almost fearful to drop off one because, different markets have different attraction to both portals. So, but I think everyone now, being on the portal on page 3 is no longer relevant. You've got to be on page 1. REA stats have, very much clearly stated that if you're not on page 1, you're losing a third of your audience. And if you're not on page 1 or 2, you may as well not be on the internet because people aren't just searching page 5, 6, or 7. So I think there's pressure to get your vendors' listings showcased at a high level. So I think all agents, or almost all agents, have gone that way. Video for sure, but I'd say bigger for us, Seth, has been social, which often has video attached to it. But, we would say Con Stathopoulos, who's a dear friend of all of ours and runs a great business in the western and northwestern parts of Sydney. Con has, I think if you spoke to the campaign track boys, Stefan, that do the Stefan Williams, that has a really good social program that we use. You look at that, and Con is using that, I think, for 85% of his listings, which Stefan tells me is the biggest in the country in terms of commitment to social. So we have a product that we've developed with them called Pinpoint Marketing. Basically, we're remarketing and retargeting people through social media, and we've now got, I'm going to say 3 million, I think, on our retargeting database because all our officers have been using this. And the more you use it, it's like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger and the bigger it gets. So I would say that most of our campaigns now, Tommy, and our average would be probably similar, Seth, to what you're talking about. I don't know. Would that be right? Would our average be 5 or 6?
You guys skew a little higher, but yeah.
Yeah, around that. I would say that for most of our best agents and our best officers, it's probably nudging $1,000 on social nowadays. So it's quite a chunk. The vast majority, the balance is obviously the portals. Signboards, we go for bigger 8x6 signboards if we can get them. So they're a bit more expensive, if not 8x4. And we're illuminating our signboard. So we're always looking for an edge because I think, just putting up a 4x3 signboard nowadays, you're often not getting noticed. So what can you do? Can you be louder and prouder, larger? Can you illuminate it at night so it captures attention, which is also good for your brand, of course? What are you doing in the social space? And I know Lisa Billick, we've had on several times, Tommy, to talk about here and at ARAC, does a great job. She's doing a lot of organic stuff with some boosting. Some others are using the corporate options, and there's various suppliers around for that. So
the video, when an agent does videos at McGrath's, to me, there are two kinds of videos. There's a video that the agent is in the video saying, hey, look at this. And there's videos where you basically just see a voiceover. Have you got a view on that? And Seth, I'll ask you the same question.
Yeah, look, I think as long as it's not used as a quasi-agent marketing tool, and I've seen, not necessarily in our brand, but I've seen some agents use it where you're wondering what the property looks like, because the whole video, it's just on them and, they're promoting themselves. There's close-ups of themselves, and then they're on balconies staring into the distance and stuff. And I think that's ridiculous. I think an agent topping and tailing a video, doing an introduction, welcome aboard, Mike Trangali, who's a good friend of yours. Tommy, I think Mike does a few good ones like that. I think, setting the scene, welcoming people in, then a voiceover, and then maybe at the end, inviting them to come and look at the property. I think that's totally fine because it's still a people business. And I think it's nice for you to be able to demonstrate some of your salesmanship to the market. But we're talking about, 5 seconds top and 5 seconds tail. We're not talking about 3 minutes at the beginning and 3 minutes at the end. So I think it's good. I think a lot of the really artistic things, Tom, where, these things where they show these architectural shots, with blurred images of vases and whole things that have got a little bit out of control. I think people go there to look at the property to get an understanding of which rooms link with which rooms, what's the space, what's the view, can you walk me out to the view so I can tell it's not from the roof, it's actually from the living room or the balcony. So, I'm a great believer in direct and transparent, but I think you can have a bit of panache. What are your thoughts about the videos and the quality of those, Seth?
John, I think that the audience for videos is extraordinarily sophisticated, and that you need to respect the public, and you need to have a pretty deep understanding of yourself as a person. I think some people are amazing on video. I think some people's personality can come through, and they're the guys you want to, or the gals you want to top and tail and have a bit of panache. But not all of us are like that. Some of us, I think, struggle. And I think you need to have an honest conversation with yourself as an agent to say, am I adding value, or am I doing this just because the other guy in the office does it? If you're shocking on camera, that's okay. But for Christ's sake, don't put yourself on camera and top and tail a video if you're distracting value. So I think agents need to be honest with themselves. If you are amazing on video, get yourself out there. If you're not, you're better in person. Don't feel pressure to do it, and let the product, which is the property, speak. So I think there's a real danger, John, for people who just follow the crowd and do it because the guy next door did it. The guy next door may be amazing on video, you're not. Just be careful of that. Like, don't feel pressure. Always play to your strengths. And if video is your strength, great. But if it isn't, why don't you showcase the property rather than yourself?
I'll give you, John, when you were kind enough to let me do the honors and go to New York and interview Gary V for Eric 4 years ago, not last year, 4 years ago, when there, one of the most useful things I got out of that meeting was I said to Gary V, I said, how hard is it to be producing video content all the time? He says, look, there's a cheapest way to do it. And I said, what's that? And he goes, just on a yellow stick note, he goes, what you can do is don't write it as a script, just have this sexy heading, 3 bullet points, outro on a yellow stick note. He goes, structured, but not scripted. He goes, in 2 minutes, you can prep yourself for any bit of content where you keep one eye on that yellow stick note. And he goes, you'll find that it won't go around in circles. It'll have an ending to the video. And I got to tell you, I find it extremely, I do it all the time. I've got them right here. I do it all the time. I'll sit here and I'll have a note. And John, you know what it's like when you write one word, you know what you've got to say next, right? Yeah. So you don't need to write every word there. So I think Seth, agents can improve on
absolutely.
You can improve on it, right? And I think sometimes agents do make excuses. I'm too old, I'm too young, bad hair day, too fat, too skinny, don't have the equipment, and they can create a narrative that actually talks themselves out of being there. Seth, I want to ask you, I know with Campaign Agent, which the core part of your business is allowing agents to actually do marketing where the vendors don't pay up front for it, which is it's been a big friction point in real estate. But for me, it's hard enough to get the listing. It's hard enough to say, sign just with me. It's hard enough to try and convince them, hey, this is a more realistic price. But in addition to that, give me $7,000. So unfortunately, your product wasn't around when I was in media. I think it would have helped a lot. But you said to me that when vendors are given the option of paying now versus paying later, there's a spend of 20% more when they pay later. Is that right?
So Tom, I thought you might ask me that question. And I just checked the data today, right? We get all the data and it was fascinating. So in Sydney, it's 10%. In Melbourne, it's about 12%. In Brisbane right now, it is 35%. So the average campaign in Brisbane for a pay now is $2,500. It's like over $3,000. Sorry, it's over almost $4,000. It was $3,903 for a pay later. And this is on a huge data set. So firstly, shout out to my Brisbane friends, because a year ago, 2 years ago, Brisbane trailed Melbourne and Sydney in terms of VPA spend. They have hugely picked up their game as a city, and just want to do a shout out to everybody who's that's a lot of hard work in our Brisbane friends. But I was somewhat astounded, because normally it's 10-20%, Tom, depends on the market, it depends on the time of year, but geez, Brisbane is that market is on fire. And if you're in Brisbane and not offering pay later, literally you're missing out on $1,500 worth of marketing that could be helping you sell the home and list the next one. So that kind of blew my mind. I just checked it half an hour ago, Tom.
Okay. So it's obvious what you're saying is when they don't have to pull out a credit card now or pay for it,
they spend more money.
They'll spend more money,
Yeah, and there's two things, Tom, and that's not just after the fact, right? Because smart agents tell vendors up front what's about to happen. I'm going to give you a choice of whether you want to pay now or pay later. And if you pay later, you'll be able to align the cost of the marketing with your sale. And smart agents tell the vendor, so when you have the marketing conversation, the vendor's not crossing stuff off their head because they don't think they can afford it. The vendor's now thinking, oh, great, I don't have to worry until I've sold the property about that. I can actually have a really smart strategic conversation with my agent about getting the best price because I don't have to worry about paying for it. Don't underestimate how many vendors through previous experience are expecting to pay now. And they've got a budget. If you change that conversation and say, we're going to give you choice, that's going to open up their mindset and it's going to open up their willingness to have a conversation about what's not the cost-effective marketing campaign, but what's going to be the most strategic and get the best price.
So Seth, you've already touched, I think you've touched on a few in what you said already about trends going forward into 2022. I mean, what other changes do you foresee coming to the vendor paid marketing, the world of digital? Where do you see some changes or some continuation?
Yeah, good question, John. So I have been astounded. I'm frank and I'm honest with everybody, especially your audience, but I have a print business as well. I have been astounded with the number of inquiries we've had in the last 2 months on old-fashioned presentation material for listings. So the entire market now has gone fully digital. Everybody's got the same proposal. And I've got all these prestige agents coming to me and saying, Seth, I've got these horrible agents who have the exact same listing presentation to me. I need a point of difference. And so I'm like back in 2010, John. I'm literally doing paper presentations again, which I wasn't expecting. We're seeing.
Are you talking about things, Seth, sorry, that they show the client during the listing or they follow through afterwards and send to the client?
Both, John. So what we would call a listing presentation as well as a submission, which is afterwards, but great question and important clarification, both. So we're working really closely with some big groups to do that. We're seeing, I think I've mentioned this a couple of times, but I want your audience to know about it, is just we're seeing a lot of people rethink, what is VPA? So is it the software I'm providing? Is it some of the services I'm providing? Should I be paying for that or is that a vendor expense? So we're seeing a lot of that. And I think the other thing I am seeing, and this is not a VPA question, but it's been quite astounding, is that offices and principals are saying, Seth, we just had a boomer of a market. In fact, I could literally pick pennies off the ground, but 2022 is going to be harder. I'm going to have to work for it. And people are coming to us and we're going to people with marketing strategies. And John, it was almost like last year was a bit lazy. Like it sort of just happened. People worked their ass off as individuals, but not a lot of people were thinking about strategic office and marketing plans. What's my market share? Everybody was sort of reacting to this boom. This year, my best clients are coming to me and saying, Seth, what are we doing in March? What are we doing in July? How are we thinking about August so that we capture our fair share in September? And it's almost like, the really sharp agents are now starting to plan again in a way that last year they probably didn't have time to because the market was moving so quickly, but they're thinking about the year in a staged way. And speaking frankly, I haven't had those conversations in 2 years. People just haven't been thinking that way because they never knew when a lockdown was going to start. And that mindset shift, I think is really profound, John. And it's been quite interesting for us to have conversations about what's going to happen in 8 months. It just hasn't happened.
As the market, I know we're kind of running out of time soon, but as the market gets a little bit more cluttered again, and there's a lot of people are using similar products, some of them digital. How are you seeing the opportunity for agents to differentiate themselves from their competition?
John, you and I have known each other for 20 years, and my advice on that hasn't changed much. Is that as an agent, you are a marketer, and I'm not talking about selling property. Let me talk about listing property and growing your business, because that's what I'm passionate about. Is that my best clients pick one thing and do it really well. So that may be that they do social well, or Peter Chauncey, our mutual friend who does the letterbox amazingly, or somebody else who does video amazingly, somebody else who does TikTok amazingly. I don't care what your poison is. Spread your risk and, as John said, be in real estate or common domain, but own one channel and be the very, very best. And that advice for me hasn't changed in 20 years, is that you need to own something that you are radically better than everybody else in your marketplace. And it doesn't matter whether it's the letterbox, social, technology, analog, it just doesn't matter. Just do something better than everybody else.
Yeah, good advice. Tommy, any
That,
last?
Peter Chauncey and that drop, I know someone that lives in that marketplace, and I don't even know whether that drop changes too much, but he says it's repeatable. It doesn't stop, right? And John, I don't know about you, but I can't help it. When one of the questions I ask an agent that's doing 100 sales a year or writing, 1.5 million, 2 million GCI, I'm always fascinated about, like, where do your listings come from? Because we know if you've got listings, life's good. And I can't help that, most of the good agents use success marketing. It's the fact that they've got, properties, and success marketing gives them more business. I can't help it. I don't see them doing a lot of cold calling, right? That's the truth, right? They probably did in an earlier part of their life. But I can't help that most of them, young and old, whether you're a Josh Chesselin at 26 years of age or you're a Peter Chauncey at 46, I don't know, maybe he's younger.
I think he's about 40, but keep going.
Okay, sorry, Pete. You look amazing, by the way. You've lost weight, Orange Theory, you're working out. Keep up the good work. So I think that letterbox drops seem to be a strategy that has been timeless. They still work. And I think the reason why is, unlike other industries, we know who our customer is. They're living inside a house. We actually know that there's a letterbox there, and we know that that person lives inside that house. And if it's done intelligently in a systematic way, and you're not sounding like an idiot with stupid ethical bribes in your drops or ego drops, I think that they're a really important part of the strategy.
Oh, absolutely, Tom. I mean, you nailed it. I mean, and it's marketing 101, right? We want to have regular, consistent conversations so that we are, as a brand or a person, top of mind. So when somebody makes the purchasing choice, they think of us first. And that you can achieve that. But the same rules in 1960 apply in 2022, is that repeatable, regular communication will trump clever messaging that's delivered once every day of the week. If you speak 50 times a year to a consumer, as Peter does every single year, every single person gets 50 pieces of communication in a letterbox, that will beat a stunning piece of video on TikTok that they see once, no matter how good the TikTok video is. Consistency.
He's built, with courtesy of your help, because you do our letterbox stuff, but he's built a moat around his business. So he's climbed the mountain, he's put the flag there, and then he's built a moat around with this constant just listed, auction invites, just sold, 6-pack, last 6 sales. And as you say, Tommy, this is not about, shit, we're a bit short on listings this month, maybe we'll do some letterbox drops. This is a formulaic, consistent system. I'll tell you, I'll just finish on this, because I think we got to get on to your gym members, Tommy. But I went up and saw Matty Steinway the other day. He's asked me, which is a great pleasure to do so, he's asked me to do an auction for a home that'll probably go close to setting a record for the Central Coast. And I had to meet him anyway and have a meeting with him. I said, let's go and have a look at it while we're up there. So I went up there, and I was babysitting Schnitzel, my little dachshund. So I took Schnitzel up. I said, would you think the vendors would mind if I took Schnitzel up? They said, no, they're dog lovers. They got a dog, Gracie. Bring her up. Anyway, so I went up there and we spent some time at the property meeting with Rob and Kimmy, lovely people. Schnitzel got on with Gracie. Anyway, came back to Sydney. The next day, I get a knock on the door, unknown. There's a delivery of 6. In fact, I've got some of them here. 6 of these.
Wow.
Full of stuff, all for Schnitzel. And literally, I've got another 5 there on the floor. But it just shows you that it's in his DNA: appreciation, being remarkable, blowing your mind, and to be quite honest, that wouldn't be mega cheap either. He's 660s. It's probably a reasonable investment. But I just guess I was going to say, Seth, to your point, because I think you need that systemized, formulaic, dependable, day in, day out, own the letterbox type stuff. And for Lisa Billy, is it Lisa Billy? Yeah. I keep thinking if it's a married name so for Lisa, it's around social, and Lisa's, amazing at that. And Chauncey owns a letterbox, and Mike Dowling's superb on the social media as well. But you've always got to be, I mean, one of my favorite sayings is it only takes a moment to create a moment. And you have to stand out by these also little surprises. And that to me was a big surprise. You have to be on the constant lookout for how can you make people feel special, whether they're a vendor, whether they're a work colleague, whether they're a family member, whatever it is. How do you make people feel special? Dr. Fred, our dear friend Tommy, he talks about from a personal relationship. He said, my number one goal every day is to blow my wife's mind with love and kindness. Victoria, his beautiful wife. And go figure, they got an amazing marriage because his goal every day is to blow her mind with love and kindness and surprises and so forth. So I think, whilst it's really important that we've talked about the systems and the systematic approach and how fruitful that can be, but I just want everyone to be very aware that you do need to be looking for that little spark, that little purple cow, as Seth Godin talking at Arik. In fact, so are you, Seth Watts. Is that correct?
Seth Watts and Seth.
That is true.
We've got two of the world's best Seths. Both, so there you go.
Nice. I'll take that comparison any day of the week. It's undeserved.
By the way, isn't that a great title? This might work instead of it's not going to work. We're wasting our time. Don't worry about it. Tried that 5 years ago. This might work's actually a bloody damn good title. Johnny, Seth, we're going to have to go because we've got a gym members session. Seth, thank you so much. We're going to see you at Arik. And by the way, Arik, 30th and 31st of May, gang, put it in your diary. Brochures will be out probably in about a month's time, but I've got to tell you.
Nicola told me that she had a group from Tassie. I don't even know who it is, but group from Tassie rang yesterday. Haven't seen the brochure yet because it's not finished, because we were kind of waiting to make sure that the event was going to go forward and waiting to see which speakers we could get both locally and overseas, because everyone's been a bit nervous. Anyway, they rang up, they said, we want 50 tickets. And she said, of course, no problem, because we've already got a good growth of ticket sales. And she said, we haven't got an agenda and all the speakers yet. They said, don't care. We've been to them before. We love it. We want 50 seats. So well done, whichever the team is. We'll give them a wrap next week if Nicola can tell me who it is. But well done, Seth. Thank you. Looking forward to you giving more pearls of wisdom at Arik. And Tommy, I'll see you in a few minutes on the real estate gym call. See you, everyone.
Thanks a lot, Seth.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
See you, gang.